How you doing, everybody? Vasu Vaddiparty here. My guest, Marty Lurie, the longtime pre- and post-game host for the San Francisco Giants on the weekends. Ordinarily, they would be on the Public House patio, which, for those that don't know, is a restaurant connected to the ballpark. It's Oracle Ballpark now, right, Marty? I think it's Oracle Ballpark now for 4 or 5 times.
I just say the ballpark because the name changes so often.
He does a great job on KNBR. Talks about melts the current ball players and the current way the game's played with the history of baseball. It's an extended pregame show on the weekends, and it's very Elvis-like. We can't wait to get back fans, but he's very Elvis-like on the weekends with all the people that come up to him on the patio. For those that remember how Elvis Presley was treated, Marty Lurie, the Elvis Presley of Oracle Park, and some of those years, and some of those years,
the fans are great. The fans are great. Be nicer. I love being out there, and I'm out there with Carmen and Adam and Allie Williams, and we just have a lot of fun. And the fans couldn't be nicer. They bring cakes and pies, and I'm sitting there holding a little dog and autographs and pictures and all that. That's what the ballpark is all about. It's entertainment and having a good time.
Well, Marty Lurie and I have been friends for years, and it's always good to see him and I appreciate the time. Thank you, Marty, for coming on.
You're welcome. You're most welcome.
Okay, so let's get to it. The San Francisco Giants. If you told me on Cinco de Mayo, first of all, I'd ask you how many margaritas you had. But if you told me on Cinco de Mayo the San Francisco Giants were going to have the best record in the National League on Cinco de Mayo, what would your answer be to anybody?
Well, it depends when you ask me the question. If you asked me this morning, I'd say, well, that's not a surprise. If you asked me the question on, March 28th, I'd say, well, I just don't see that happening. But that's baseball, as I like to say it. We walk into a season fully a blank mosaic, as I like to say. And as we go through it day by day, the story unfolds. And you never know where it's going to go. Coming out of spring training, I knew they could hit. I knew they were an older team. I didn't know if they'd be healthy. And the pitching, again, would DeSclafani be okay? Would Wood be okay? He had the ablation procedure. Webb was fabulous. Cueto was awful in spring training. Gosman was okay. We just didn't know. They had a ton of bullpen guys who we've seen up in the big leagues now. So you didn't know coming out of spring training. So all the pieces kind of fit together, which I'm sure we'll touch on some of them.
Well, you and I have been watching baseball a long time, so we see it's a different picture every year. You just never know coming into a season. San Francisco Giants. So if I had the assessment and I'm looking at the Giants, and obviously everybody's talking about the Dodgers and Padres coming into the year, and there they are and tied for second place at 17-14. 14 losses, surprising for the Dodgers for a lot of people. But San Francisco Giants at 18-12. I thought DeSclafani was a good move because anybody that gets out of Cincinnati, a fly ball pitcher like him, I thought San Francisco was perfect for him, and I thought he was going to have a good year. Aaron Sanchez, people don't remember, he was on the ALCS team that pitched against the Royals in 2015. He's got a good sinker, and he's pitched well so far for them. Johnny Cueto been injured a little bit, but he's the veteran of the staff. But it's even more than starting pitching, Marty. I'll tell you what I think, because the hitting's still not there. Some of the clutch hitting has been there, and some of the power has come back, especially for Buster Posey. But if I told you the best thing about this team right now is the way they play defense, it's helped everything around, what would you say to that?
Well, that's not a shock to me because Belt is a Gold Glover, even though he hasn't won one. He's a Gold Glover. Crawford and Longoria are Gold Glovers. Posey behind the plate is a Gold Glove type of catcher. The only question was going to be at second base, and La Stella was going to be the second baseman. The outfield, we knew Yastrzemski was a good right fielder. Dubon in center field was learning, but very aggressive. And left field was going to be a question with Dickerson and Ruff. So if they stayed healthy, they were going to have a great infield defense and a good up the middle defense if they stayed healthy. So the defense being the best is shocking. I mean, let's face it, that's shocking because Flores and Solano don't have the great range. They're a little bit older. But to know that they had a good defense coming out of spring training is not a shock to me. That isn't a shock.
Our guest, Marty Lurie, the pregame host on the weekends for KNBR for the San Francisco Giants broadcast. You can tune in at 680 and 104.5 if you're local, or you can get it on the internet. Anywhere you get your internet or podcast, you can listen to Marty Lurie. It's a great listen and extended pregame show. I always enjoy the pregame show because I love how you melt the history of baseball with what's going on currently, as I tried to say at the beginning, as I tried to get the words out here. Let's talk about the National League West a little bit here. The Dodgers, everybody had them pegged for the World Series already. Again, that's why you play the game, 17 and 14. The big signing with Trevor Bauer. They haven't hit the ball as well. They've had injuries a little bit. This is my team. So for the internet world, this is my team. It's kind of sad. It's kind of shocking to see them get off to a rough start. Then they got swept in the doubleheader by the Cubs yesterday. What's your take of the division overall, but the Dodgers specifically right now?
Well, the Dodgers have lost 12 out of 16, and that's kind of hard to believe with the pitching they have. They've had a lot of injuries early on, and that's been a big problem, and they're still not clicking offensively. Turner was hot early, and he's come back to earth a little bit. Betts has never really gotten it going yet. Bellinger's been out since basically like the first week of the season, so they've missed him. But I think there's another part that they miss, and that's the depth that they had last year. Last year they had Jock Peterson, and they had, of course, Kiki Hernandez. And these were guys who could come off the bench and do some damage. They don't have that depth anymore. They're working people in, Raley, McKinstry, who's hurt now. So I think offensively, they're suffering a little bit. They're suffering a little bit offensively with injuries, and also they don't have the depth they had last year. Kershaw in one inning in his last start, four hits, 4 runs. He was out. Bauer 4 1/3 last night. Urias has been terrific. He goes soon again, maybe today for the Dodgers. I forget if he's up today or not. But pitching-wise, Dustin May, he's out for this year and next year. Holy cow, what an injury that is. So you've seen a lot of injuries with the Dodgers so far. So I think that's a big part of it. But they have a good team. The bullpen is in flux with Kenley Jansen. And is he going to be the closer? They've got so many new names in the bullpen. I don't know who any of these people are. They had a guy last night, Clevenger, pitching, and he ended up losing the game last night to the Cubs in the second game. So it's May 5th. What can I tell you? 30 games have been played. You got 132 more to go. And the quality, the thing about baseball is the quality will get to the top. This isn't a 60-game season. This is 162. So the quality will get there by the end. So for the Dodgers, look, their misfortune is the Giants' fortune right now. So we'll talk about the Giants and their schedule, which is going to change a little bit in May. But the Giants have taken advantage of the Dodgers, and the Padres are still kind of putting it together.
Our guest, Marty Lurie, if you're on Facebook or on my YouTube channel, you want to send a question in, please feel free to do so. If you missed the live stream, you can download the podcast, Apple, Spotify, the best as well, too. We lost Marty's picture there for a second. There we go. All right, there we go. Back to him. I'm learning all this new technology, too, Marty, as far as the Zooms and the streams. Too. So it's you'd think I got it down now. But anyway, all right, so I'm interested in
Here's the deal. When you do these things, don't touch anything. Just sit here and talk. Don't touch a thing. I made a mistake. I touched the screen by accident. See?
Okay. All right. Good sage advice from Marty. I always listen to Marty's advice anyway. All right. So let's talk about the Padres a little bit. I was not impressed about, I know they got Machado and Tatis on the left side of the infield. They signed Tatis. And my joke was, as a Dodgers fan, I'm like, oh, they got both their infielders signed for a long term to win one playoff game because they're not going to beat the Dodgers in the division. But I just don't think they hit well enough, and their pitching's terrific and their bullpen's really good. I just don't think they hit well enough. And you can't, if you're an echelon team, you can't get swept at home by the Milwaukee Brewers. I know it's April and I know it's May and all this other stuff, but I just don't think that you can get swept at home by the Brewers after winning 3 out of 4 against LA on the road. That just tells me that you're not ready to compete or not ready for prime time, as the old saying goes.
Well, you're facing Woodruff and Burns. Those are 2 of the best pitchers in the
National League
right now. So you take that into consideration. But let's talk Padres. They have been a little bit of a disappointment to me. Offensively, we're still waiting for the breakout of Tatis, the breakout of Machado. Hosmer was good early. He's come back to earth. Grisham is terrific. They run like crazy. That's what they're doing. They're a big running team. They pulled this double steal in the Giants, second and third. They run like crazy. Offensively, they just haven't put it together yet. Now, am I concerned about it? Not really, because I think they're going to hit. And over 162, you're going to see that being a good team. They are a bad defensive team.
They are.
They throw the ball around like crazy. Tatis has more errors than some teams have. The outfield is okay. Profar is in left. And as I say, Grisham is out there. Myers, you got Hosmer, you got Nola catching now. So as a team on the field, they make a lot of mistakes, but as an offense, they just haven't clicked yet. And I wouldn't write them off. I'd say they've been disappointing. I think everyone agrees on that, but I wouldn't say, well, they're in trouble. They'll never be able to put it together. They can't. Now, the big thing for them is they spend money on pitching. And of course, they got Clevenger last year. He's Tommy John. Morihone, Tommy John. Weathers, who's been terrific, pitched in relief last night, 3 innings. Lamet they try to get him out there. He's pitched twice this year, and he's pitched 5 or 6 innings, and that's about it. I think they're going to try to get him back in the rotation, but he's got a sore arm. And we go to Darvish, who's been fabulous. Darvish is terrific, but he's an older pitcher. And this is May. And we'll see where Darvish is in August and September. He's an older pitcher, throws a lot of high-stress pitches, a lot of breaking stuff. He's like Greinke was a few years ago. He'll throw you 68, then he'll throw you 94. So he's been terrific. Snell has got great stuff. And for 3 innings, he's on command. And all of a sudden, in the 4th and 5th inning, he'll throw 65 pitches. And he can't find the plate. And he'll make a big pitch to get out of the inning. But all of a sudden, after the 5th inning, he's thrown 90 pitches. Now, they need him. They need him to go a little deeper in the game. They need him to go deeper. Paddock has been awful. The sheriff, Big Chris Paddock, has been awful. So what's been saving them? The bullpen. Their bullpen is terrific.
Outstanding.
It's terrific. Hill has been good. Adams has been good. Pomerantz, Melanson closing 10 for 10. The bullpen is terrific. So they play close games. And then if they have a lead in the 7th inning, like the Padres have done for the last 25 years when Bochy was there and Bud Black, they know how to do those last 3 innings, and they've done it again. So there they are. It's the beauty of a baseball race. All the parts are there. I'm not going to worry about the Padres if I'm a Padre fan. I'm not going to worry too much about the Dodgers, although there are some red flags. And for the Giants, you just hope they stay out of the infirmary. They stay out of the infirmary because the injuries are the things that can hurt the Giants.
One more on the Giants with our guest Marty Lurie here. What do you think they need to do to keep this pace up? What have they done that surprised you in the first month? I know the defense has been great. We just mentioned that, the starting pitching. Bullpen's been a little lagging lately. Jake McGee got hurt a little bit. Last night was a tough game. For those that watch as we tape today, the Giants put a doubleheader. They should have won yesterday at Colorado. They gave up 6 at the bottom of the 7th, lost that game. Still the best record in the National League even after that loss. So what surprised you about the first month, and what do you think they need to do to keep going in this direction?
They got to keep pitching. The starting pitching has been terrific. You got everybody with an earned run average other than Webb under 2.2. And what it's done is it's helped the defense because the pitching has been so good that the hard hit ball rate is very, very low. And therefore, they're turning what's put into play into outs better than anybody around. Their batting average on balls put in play against them, very low, the lowest in baseball. So the pitchers have been so good that you don't have the outfield being exposed. So there aren't that many tough chances during the game. So they have to continue the starting pitching the way it is. They must continue to do that. They can't play from behind. They don't hit for a high average. They hit a lot of home runs. They can take some walks. They can work the count. They can grind it out. But if this team is going to go anywhere, they've got to pitch like this for the season. And that's the big question because you got Cueto coming back, lat injury already, older. DeSclafani, you don't know what's going to happen. This is a 162. These guys pitched 20, 30, 40, 50 innings last year. Now you're asking them to pitch 180. We have no idea what the summer is going to look like. We just don't know. Gossman's another one. All of a sudden, the groin hurts, and, they had to push him back, and he's going to pitch this weekend. DeSclafani's going to pitch against the Padres, and Sunday, Cueto's coming back. So they have to keep the starting pitching going. That's the key to me, and they have to stay healthy. You must keep Posey on the field. Posey's having an MVP. Yes, a Hall of Fame MVP season. Belt is having an MVP type season. Longoria has been fabulous. Crawford does his job. Can you keep those guys on the field and keep them healthy at 33, 34, 35 years old? That's the question.
It's going to be interesting. As Marty always says, it's the mosaic of baseball, game 1 to 162. We're at May 5th, and I tell everybody on my Facebook page every time, big Giants fans that love you, they all say, they all give me they all give me the number one finger on LA every time they lose. And I'm going, calm down, everybody. It's May 5th. It's Cinco de Mayo. Go have another margarita. Type of thing. All right, last one on the National League West. I know you guys are going to see the American League West again this year with the pandemic and the travel. The last one in the National League West, Arizona, all of a sudden playing well. They're 2 games back. Madison Bumgarner throws is what John Miller said, a notable achievement, not credited as a no-hitter, a 9-inning no-hitter, but then these are Major League Baseball rules that said it's a 7-inning doubleheader. First of all, I think it should have been a no-hitter. Secondly, how about Arizona starting to hit the ball a little bit now? And they're right there in the mix.
Yeah, they are. I have no idea who they are, who plays for them, what they're doing. I had Nick Picoro on the show Sunday from the Arizona Republic, and he went through Pavin Smith and this one and that one. At the end, they said, Nick, who are these people? I have no idea who they are. So they're starting to play a little better. They got a good manager. Bullpen, I have no idea what's in the bullpen. Bumgarner has had 3 great starts in a row. And they told him, forget about the analytics, forget about everything. Just be Madison Bumgarner. And he went out and he's been Madison Bumgarner. And 7-inning no-hitter, who cares what they call it? The guy pitched no-hit ball for 7 innings. And prior to that, the start before that, he did well. But prior to that, he was the worst pitcher in baseball.
Right.
So if he figured something out, and whatever it is, more power to him. We love him, and it's going to be fun to watch him. But Arizona, who knows? If they could play 500 ball, it'd be fabulous. But I have no idea who they are.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does.
Knows who they are.
Yeah, we'll find out in July. We'll find out by July what happens.
Marte is hurt for them.
Yep.
They've had some injuries. Walker's now back. But I'm talking about names. I have no idea who I'm talking about.
I don't think a lot of casual baseball fans do know either, Marty. Let's talk, there's nothing really to talk about Colorado. I will say this. I root for Ryan McMahon. I grew up with his dad in San Jose. So Ryan McMahon's having a great year for Colorado, and that's probably the highlight for their season.
Yeah, right now. Black, you got to feel for Buddy Black.
I do. I feel really bad for him. Because he's a great pitching coach, and they just can't get the pitching in there, and it's a tough place to play. Well, and it's hard to watch baseball there.
It's Colorado.
Yeah, it's hard to watch baseball there.
I look at Buddy and I look at Steve Foster. What could they possibly say to each other? What are they going to say? And they bring in relievers, they walk people and all that. It's a mess. Buddy Black to me is starting to look like Roger Stone. He's looking like the guy we see on TV.
I just got the reference.
Really. And Mike Tachman looks like Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. I watched too much CNN for about a year and a half. Everybody's starting to look like someone from politics now.
That's all we did last year, Marty. At least it's either streaming videos or CNN. Anything like that.
We lived with CNN. That was it.
I'll tell you, I had a couple of, just to get off topic here for a second. I was talking to a prominent football coach, a former football coach, both pro and college, Texas, Kansas City Chiefs. And you know how football coaches are. And I don't know, you haven't done football in a long time, but coaches have to control everything. And last year, no playbook, no precedent setting, a role, no nothing. I always wondered how football coaches who have a different mentality than you and I are handle the 2020 when there's no game plan in place. And it was just rough on some of these guys that I talked to. All right, Marty Lurie, our guest here from KNBR, does the weekend pregame shows. Hopefully we'll all get back out there and be able to see him on the patio. It's a great experience to be out there at the public house. Let's talk about the American League West. The pandemic has kind of kept the American League West in the same rotation. The Oakland A's, a team that you covered for a lot of years before. You were the pregame and postgame host for a lot of years. I think people sometimes forget that, but they're the best record in baseball. They start off 1-6. They get a 12-game winning streak. And now here they are, 19-12. I don't want to say treading water since that 12-game winning streak, but 19-12, really, really better than I thought they were. I'm still not sold on Luzardo and Montas, but obviously Matt Chapman and Matt Olson and the cornerstones there. Their relieving has been so-so. You got old friend Sergio, your old friend Sergio Romo out there from the Giants days. What are the A's doing in your mind that you're? I don't know how much you're watching the American League, but what are the A's doing in your mind that are getting them to the best record in the American League overall? Actually,
Jed Lowry has been fabulous. He's part of the winning combination every night. Laureano has been hot in center field. They have a great manager in Bob Melvin. He knows how to handle the pitching. Luzardo played one too many video games, and now he's got a fractured pinky finger, so he's out for a bit. But they're a very solid team. They have decent starting pitching. They hit home runs. They're more walk-off wins for the A's. You can't get them through the ninth inning. If you're the opposition, you can't get them through the ninth inning. It's very hard to do it. They're just a good team. They're solid. They're catching the ball. They've got the best fielding third baseman, best fielding first baseman in those two guys. Shortstop Andrews isn't hitting a lick, but he's all right. Mitch Moreland. They're a good, solid team. This is a good race. Anything could happen. Seattle, I just don't think they hit enough. I love Kikuchi. He's been terrific. They just don't. They're not solid enough. They're a long ways away when it's all said and done. Houston is still a decent core team. They are. And they handle the A's pretty well. So I expect Houston to be there. The Angels, better than I thought. Their pitching is a little better than I thought. Mike Trout is having a great year that nobody knows about. And we'll see what happens with them. And Texas is just awful.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Let me ask you about Mike Trout. I'm glad you brought him up because I was going to ask you because nobody does know about him, and he's not a self-promoting type of guy. And it's hard to keep, and we know what baseball, as far as the casual fans go, they don't usually tune in until after July. Mike Trout's only been to the playoffs one time in his entire 10-year career, and that's bad for baseball from the standpoint of nobody knows who he is. What do you think baseball, I know you're a philosophical guy and you like to wax poetic, but what do you think baseball's got to do to get the fringe fan back to the ballpark? Because obviously not now pandemic, but just in general, what they got to do down the stretch.
Well, I think you just have to play baseball, to tell you the truth. And they should have expanded the playoffs to have more teams, to get more people involved, because we're coming off a pandemic. It's not that easy to get fans back to the park for health reasons and just to get them interested again in watching a game from the park and not watching a game as we would be doing on streaming or something like that. So I think you just have to work in getting the people back and put the product out on the field. There are going to be changes. They want to speed up the game. The 3-batter rule for the relief pitcher, the 7-inning doubleheader, which I can't stand.
Hate that.
The extra inning, putting the guy on second base.
Hate that too.
Not necessary. And that's what they're doing. So we'll see where they go with it. But someone like Trout, you need the stars. Acuna, you need to know him. DeGrom, you need to know these people and become household names. And they're young. DeGrom isn't, but the offensive side, a lot of them are younger, and they've got to learn to market these people, because Trout's been in the playoffs one time and he struck out a million times.
Mm-hmm.
It was awful. And now the guy's hitting 420 and nobody knows anything about it. Nothing. And he's having a fabulous season. So they got to do a better job of marketing their players. You watched the NFL draft the other night. Come on. This was like the Oscars. And the baseball draft, they have, Mike Murphy, who we love, bringing the card up, to the commissioner. And this thing, they've got, rock bands and all sorts of stuff happening. So baseball's got to do a better job of marketing. But they're so mixed up on this labor stuff that it gets in the way of doing anything else. I can believe it because it's been going on for 150 years. Once they realized they could put a fence around the field and charge money, they've been arguing with the players on how to divide it up. This goes back to 1870. And that's the truth. It's the truth. So they got to figure out a way to work with each other and to market their product in a better way. But you can't knock the season. The 162, the day-to-day drama, the games every day. We have to get our mindset back to that. And when we get into the summer and see how it's playing out, and then you get to the race in September, but we need more teams in the playoffs. It was okay last year. I like the expanded playoffs.
Couple more minutes here with Marty Lurie on Vasu Vaddiparty. If you're streaming with us live and you missed any of it, you can download and subscribe anywhere. Get your podcast, Apple and Spotify seem to be the best, and you can check out Staples Media as well too, where all our shows are at. Let's hit the National League East just for a couple of seconds. We don't need to go team by team, but you mentioned Jacob deGrom, and for 3 years, I mean, everybody in the Bay Area where we live remembers Matt Cain and the little run support. I mean, Matt Cain didn't get a lot of run support, but Jacob deGrom would love the run support that Matt Cain got based on the years that he's had the last few years. I mean, as you look at the bottom of the screen here, Jacob deGrom, who, by the way, missed his start yesterday. He's got some shoulder issues. 2-2 with a .51 ERA, Marty. You've watched baseball a long time. I've watched baseball a long time. 1977 for me, my first game in Los Angeles. How does that happen? I mean, I know how it happens. They're not hitting the ball, but, I mean, how does that happen consistently to one guy in the rotation?
Look, it's because sometimes, hitters relax saying, well, it's deGrom. He's not going to give up anything, and maybe they don't play as aggressively. But we saw it with the Dodgers in the 60s with Koufax and Drysdale. The famous story is, Drysdale was in the hotel. He went ahead and Koufax pitched the game, and they came into the hotel and they said to Drysdale, hey, Sandy didn't give up any runs. And Drysdale said, yeah, but did he win the game? And that's the way it is with deGrom. It's the same thing. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing. Look, we're in an era of hitting, diminished hitting.
Right.
Whether it's shift, which has got to change.
Yeah.
The mound, which is closer now, and they throw 97, 98, 95. Something's got to change. And we're seeing pitchers like deGrom start dominating, and it's going to be something baseball's got to deal with. The shift has got to go.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I was all right with 2020. Everything was a one-off with everything that we went through. Watching a guy at second in extra innings, like watching beer league softball when you start that. I get it in softball because there's not a lot of hitting in softball, female softball. And then 3-batter minimum, I was all right with that because in the old days, relief pitchers would go an inning or 2 innings. So I'm all right with guys coming in to face 3 batters. You got to get both sides out.
Until you hit the first 2, and you're still out there, like it happened in the Philly game.
Right.
They hit Harper in the face. They hit Gregorius in the side, and they couldn't take the guy out. St. Louis couldn't take the guy out because he hadn't faced 3 batters yet. That's where the umpire has to jump in and say, okay, he's coming out.
Yeah, I still like the 3-batter rule. I don't like the extra inning rule, and I don't like the 7-inning doubleheaders. We agree on that. So one last thing, talk about 2020, 2021 pandemic. How's this for a stat for you? This is from my research. Everybody in the National League East, and I don't know how much you follow this, but I do. I think it's an important stat. The Miami Marlins are in last place, but they're the only team with a plus run differential in the Eastern Division. Philadelphia 15-15. They're okay. Their bullpen's horrible. Washington, they got off to a slow start. Soto's hurt. Scherzer pitched a complete game the other day. And then there's no baseball sense. Like I want to bring this up because you and I have watched baseball a long time, and we know kind of the way it goes in terms of the right plays to make. I'm watching the Marlins and Nationals game on Sunday afternoon. Scherzer's dominating the game. Marlins are not doing anything. They finally get a base runner. Run means nothing. He's on first base. It's the 7th inning. They still need another batter up there to get the tying run. What does he do? He takes off to second, gets thrown out, trying to steal second. What is he doing, Marty? What are players doing? Do players understand the nuance of baseball nowadays? Because I watch it, I'm like, what are they thinking sometimes out there?
Well, they don't run. They don't steal bases. They don't bunt. They don't play the little game. So when they're asked to play the little game, it's trouble. And they'll do things. Look, how many times do we see a guy go second to third on a ground ball to short and get thrown out?
Right.
Why
does that happen, Marty? Why does that happen? Do they not understand the way the game is supposed to be played? Is that what's going on nowadays?
I think they do. I just think they're, aggressive, trying to make something happen. And look, Devon the other day ran into the third base because he kept his head down and he wasn't looking. So you see some of that. But generally, the game is a better game when you have the ball in play. Then you can see the athleticism, you can see the running, you can see the doubles and triples.
Totally agree.
Strikeouts exceed hits by 1,000. It's crazy. The first hitter strikes out, they walk the next two, they strike out the next hitter, and maybe the next hitter will hit a ground ball. And meanwhile, you've been watching the screen for 25 minutes and one ball has been put in play. That's got to change.
That's got to change.
Got to change. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Central here a little bit. St. Louis starting to get their up and comings here a little bit. 5-game winning streak. Milwaukee off to a hot start. Cubs, Pirates, Reds bringing up the back end of the division. Arenado and Goldschmidt in St. Louis right now. San Francisco Giants fans that are watching on the internet now know how bad they used to hurt the Giants pitching staff for years and years and years. And now they only have to face them twice a year, once there and once here. What do you like about the Central? What have you seen about the Central when you watch?
Well, I like the Cardinals pitching. I like the bullpen. I think they're starting pitching. They got an ace in Flaherty. Kim has been pretty good. The Cardinals have been pretty good. They've got some decent hitting. They've got some good outfielders. Baden is now back. O'Neill is doing well. Carlson, a rookie, is doing well. They got Goldschmidt and Arenado on the corners. De Jong is up the middle. They're a good team. I think the Cardinals are the best team. The Brewers don't hit. And Yelich is going out to the disabled list again. They can't figure out what's wrong with his back. And they just don't hit enough. But, boy, the Brewers bullpen,
outstanding.
Fabulous. Suter. They got another guy, Williams, who throws 100. He's not been that good this year, but he's solid. And they got Burns, who's on the COVID list, I think, who has got 50 walks and no strikeouts.
50 strikeouts and no walks.
50 strikeouts and no walks. And then you got Woodruff, who's pitched great. And then you got Hauser and, players like that. So I think the Brewers and the Cardinals are the best teams. But the Pirates can be a pain in the neck.
They are.
They got a closer, Richard Rodriguez, who was retired like 28 or 30 in a row over, 9 or 10 games. And they have some bullpen. Crick has been terrific. The Cubs have some incentive because there's so many free agents, Brian and Rizzo and those guys, see what's going to buy is. And then, of course, you get Cincinnati. They're terrible. There's just something about them. They do not live up to their potential. And I think Amir Garrett is a symbol of what goes on. You got to have more respect for the game than Amir Garrett and take everybody on all the time. And I think that's sort of a symbol of the Reds right now. I think they're in trouble.
All right, one last American League question here before I get you out of here. The Kansas City Royals, the Boston Red Sox, the Seattle Mariners, and the Chicago White Sox. If I gave you a choice of those 4 teams in a hat, who do you think is going to come out of those 4? Because 3 of those teams are surprises, and the White Sox were expected to win.
Yeah. What color are your socks?
White.
Then you got the right socks on. They're the best team of that crowd.
I like the White Sox a lot. I was born in Chicago. That's my team. If I had to pick an American League team, that's my team. But
as goofy as Tony La Russa has been, and he's made a lot of strange moves within the game, he really has. He's trying to learn his personnel. Well, meanwhile, he's cost the team probably 3 or 4 games of crazy moves. But all in all, I think when push comes to shove, the White Sox are the best team in that division. But believe me, there's no guarantee. You may be wearing Red Sox before the end of the season.
Oh, don't say that. I have too many Red Sox friends in the Bay Area that are out here. There's just too many of them. Well, it's always good to have 162 games back. We went through the pandemic. Let me ask you this. I mean, we already went through it, how you handled the pandemic and everything like that. It was just a rough year. Glad to see you're healthy. This your mean Mercedes for the White Sox has been a big story for them. That's the thing I like about Marty. Marty brings out the stories of baseball as well as the nuts and bolts of the game. It's a great pregame show, an extended pregame show, an hour and a half with Terry Crowley and our mutual friend Bill Lasky. What do you do, an hour and a half before game time?
Well, that's when you get there, but we've been we're 3 to 4 hours before game time. So if it's a 1 o'clock start, we come on at 9 o'clock. You show up usually about 11.
With an adult beverage in my hand.
That's correct. You walk up there and we say, "Hey, Vasu, how are you?" And it's 11 o'clock already, and we've been working, for 3 hours.
That's how I put these shows together, Marty. I barely did any research. I just let you talk.
That's okay. And don't forget, tomorrow is Willie Mays' 90th birthday.
That's right. I wanted to talk about that. So you developed a nice. That's the last thing I was going to get to. You developed a nice relationship with your affiliation with the Giants over the years with Willie Mays, and to the point where he comes out to the patio and everybody stands and gives him the ovation that he deserves. But number 90 for number 24 tomorrow. How about that? How's he doing? First of all, I know his eyesight's been pretty poor the last few years, but from everything that I've heard and every time that you talk about him on the air when I listen, he seems to be in good spirits and still in pretty good health for being 90.
Well, it's great. Last time I saw him was in Scottsdale, and that was last March. And we sat and talked, and I think we put the picture up on Facebook. And, he's fabulous. He's fabulous. He's a wonderful man. I'm so happy. The 90th birthday, what a milestone. We know he's challenged with his eyesight, but his mind is so sharp. He remembers everything. And one of the thrills of my life is getting to know him. I'm a kid from Brooklyn. Come on, I saw him play for the New York Giants against the Dodgers at Ebbets Field. And all of a sudden now I'm interviewing Willie Mays. And if that's a baseball story, that's one that people would not believe. So I love Willie. When I first met him, about 15 years ago, I guess, or maybe it was before that. But when I first really got to know him, it was at spring training. And we're talking about the Cincinnati Reds from 1956. And of course, this was a team that had tremendous home runs and a lot of all-stars. They stuffed the ballot box in the all-star game the next year and everything. So he said, all right, name them. Name the Cincinnati Reds, And I said, well, Kluszewski and Temple and McMillan and Post and Frank Robinson and Gus Bell and Ed Bailey. He says, yeah, but who was playing third? And I looked at him, I said, Ray Jablonski. And when I said that, his face changed. And from that day forward, he showed me some respect. And he chose me to be his interviewer we've done about a half a dozen shows in front of 1,000 people. I flew to Atlanta with him to talk before Coca-Cola. And it's been a thrill of my life to know him. And anyone who gets to know him, he's got a rich, rich personality. He's generous. He loves children. And when you walk away, if you shook the hand of Willie Mays, you said, I met the greatest that ever played. And he's a great man, too. He's a very generous man. And if you meet him and you say, Jesus, Willie, I like your jacket. Next thing you know, you'll be wearing his jacket.
Yeah. He's the greatest giant of all time. There's no doubt about it. He's the greatest giant of all time.
He's a great guy, and we love him. And we did shows with him for Tommy Bahama. And, of course, he would go in and he, leave wearing, 6 jackets and 3 shirts and all that. And he'd say, well, come on, you should go get him. I said, look, you're Willie Mays. I'm not. Okay? I can't do that. So he goes back to the 50s of coming up with the New York Giants, but he played as a kid for the Birmingham Black Barons in the mid-40s.
Right.
A high school kid. He would go on the trips. He'd have to come back to high school and write a story about the cities that he had gone to. He's had an amazing life, and I'm so happy he could be 90 years old. I really am. It's one of the treasures for all of us in the Bay Area. Thank God he's okay.
Considering the year we've had with the loss of Hall of Famers, either through the pandemic or other illnesses or natural causes or whatever the case is, it's great to have Willie Mays be around at number 90. I did get to meet him once. I did say hi. I got about 5 seconds with him.
It's a big deal.
He was on the patio. It's a huge deal. Even for somebody who didn't watch him play, it's a huge deal because you know who Willie Mays is. Let me ask you this before you go. You talk about Willie Mays, and I hear your shows. A lot of it's on current baseball. But I know you, and we've known each other for a long time, and I know your background in baseball goes when you were a kid. You said growing up in New York, you were a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, and how did you love a baseball come to Marty?
Well, it became part of my life. It became my unconditional friend. My father died when I was 4 and a half in 1950, and my uncle Abe, who was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, introduced me to baseball, and baseball became my friend. Don't forget, this was the golden era of baseball in New York. Willie, Mickey, and the Duke, baseball cards and everything else, and it gave me that stability, that unconditional friend that would be there for me every day in a very traumatic turmoil part of my life. Baseball was there for me. So I became just like every kid in Brooklyn. You know, if you're a Dodger fan, which I was as a little kid, and you Giant fans lived across the street, you didn't talk to them. There weren't any Yankee fans in Brooklyn. That's the way life was. But as I grew up a little bit more, and the St. Louis Browns moved to Baltimore, and they played the Yankees on TV, and the game was shown from Baltimore. And here I'm 1954. I'm 8 years old, and I'm looking at the hat with the bird on it, and I really liked it. And I was a member of the Audubon Society. I guess I like birds, so I became a lifelong Baltimore Oriole fan. And I was an Oriole fan from that 1954 right until I started doing this stuff when I first met you in 1995, 96, when I first started doing this stuff.
And I changed your life forever.
Then I became a baseball fan. But for me, it was Jackie Robinson, the movie 42. I was one of those kids that idolized him. And I've loved baseball ever since. So I've seen a lot of ball in my time. And I know you just have to be patient, let the season play out. If you hit the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball, and pitch the ball, you'll be fine. If you can do those things. And that's it. You have to just be a solid ball club.
Well, I've seen baseball since 1977, but I love the history. When I listen to your pregame shows and our conversations about the history of baseball, I learned something new all the time. We've been friends a long time. By the way, another show that we do, hopefully we'll have you on again, talking about the reason your conversational tone is so good. People don't know on the internet, or I'm sure you haven't talked about it very much. Marty Lurie used to be an attorney, so I can imagine the conversational tone and the style and deliberation in a courthouse or in a courtroom in front of a jury or a judge probably has the same tone and tenor as you do your broadcasts. Is that kind of how you developed your style in terms of on-air presence?
I think so. I think that, which I never realized when I just started this thing, little KECG 88.1 FM in El Cerrito High School. And I just started it. And the skills of being a trial lawyer transferred. You know, you have to produce a case. You have to produce a show. You have to listen to the people who are on. You have to ask open-ended questions. You have to be someone who can move the show along, and you have to relate to your audience. It's not about me. The answers are about you, and that's what I try to bring information to the audience. And yes, to answer your question, yeah, I think being a lawyer for 25 years, being a trial defense lawyer in Florida and San Francisco prepared me. Who knew it? I didn't know it. That my love for baseball and law prepared me to do this. Who would have guessed that?
Well, knowing you as I know you, I could tell that the love of baseball and the broadcasting skill and the things that you've done. You've been a great friend of mine for years, and I love enjoying the conversation with you. It's the first time we've done it. How's my open-ended questions, by the way? Since I might as well get critiqued online.
Perfect. Very good. Very good. So you don't give the answer and say, right? Isn't that true? You know, that's the way a lawyer would do it if they're cross-examining someone. But no, you ask the question and you let me give my answer. That's the key to the whole deal. And the other part is to say your name. So Vasu, you did a nice job.
I appreciate that, Marty. I love talking to you in person. Let's do this again on the interview. And I appreciate the time. Marty Lurie, the pregame host on weekends on KNBR. It's a great listen. With the history of baseball, with the current tenor of baseball as well, too. Kerry Crowley, Bill Lasky also joined him on the podcast. Marty, I appreciate the time. I know you got to run for the baseball game coming up in about 20 minutes. Thank you very much. We will talk soon, and I hope to see you sometime down the road. Stay healthy and stay well, my friend.
You're welcome. Anytime. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Marty Lurie been our guest. Check it out on Stables Media, and also download and subscribe to any of the podcasting outlets to get it if you missed any of the live broadcast. Again, thanks to Marty Lurie. Have a great afternoon, everybody. We'll see you soon.